Hello everyone, welcome. My name is Phoenix and this is the Consumer's Guide to Video Games. Spider-Man 2. The game, not the movie. We'll talk about the movie another time. 2023 Insomniac Games. Marvel's Spider-Man 2 is a third-person open-world action game where the player once again takes control of the titular webhead and his new partner Miles Morales. Taking place after the events of the first game and the Miles Morales spin-off, the Spider-Men are trying desperately to live their lives while fighting crime. Things start to look up for Peter when his friend Harry Osborn reappears after battling an illness. However, that is short-lived, as a mercenary known as Kraven the Hunter appears in New York seeking to hunt down the villains and heroes of the city. With villains on all fronts appearing, including an alien symbiote that has attached itself to Harry, and then attaches itself to Peter, the Spider-Men must try to stop the chaos before it engulfs New York. I was looking forward to this game quite a bit, as I, like a lot of people, really enjoyed the first one. I think after the wait, this game was definitely worth the hype in many ways. This was a very engrossing action game. This game, more or less, improves on Spider-Man 1 in the ways that matter. It changes things both big and small that make for a more addicting and enveloping experience. The combat remains fundamentally the same as the first game, with the more agility-based Arkham combat and whatnot. The big change regarding combat was giving Peter his own gameplay gimmick similar to Miles' electrical powers, and that was the Venom suit. You get a ton of new powers and a rage meter, which comes in super handy during bosses and harder enemy rushes. In terms of smaller stuff, I like that health regen required a full power bar to activate, instead of just having even a little bit of energy built up. It required you to level up and use your super abilities wisely in order to survive. Traversal through the city and the overall world and level design is much improved. Getting the silly looking armpit web wings was a fun touch, and gliding through New York was quite exhilarating at times. While exploring New York, you get tons of things to do. There are various side missions to complete, such as collecting robots, destroying nests of Venom minions, helping Sandman rebuild his mind, and simply doing odd jobs for the people of New York. While there is a bit of dicking about involved with some of these quests, traversing the city makes it worth it. The bosses are also really fun. There are tons of great mono-a-mono fights, and each fight has phases that make great use of your abilities, requiring you to think creatively and be on edge constantly. There are also tons of fun gimmick levels throughout the game, mostly to do with controlling robots or solving puzzles. The little robots were fun to control, and the puzzles also made great use of the DualSense's weighted trigger buttons. But what irks me about the gameplay is the return of the MJ stealth levels. This time, they are so much worse, because MJ now has a stun gun, and you have to engage in stealth combat with her. These portions are overly long and frustrating, as MJ still can only take one hit. You have to play it perfectly, otherwise it's back to the previous checkpoint for you. You also had to fight a giant nest of symbiotes with her, and that shit just felt like shitty Resident Evil. It drags the pace of the game to a grinding halt and sapped all the energy out of me. Like, I'm really sorry, but fucking Mary Jane Fisher, fucking Solid Snake Watson, fucking Mary Jill Valentine Watson, that ain't it, chief. Turning to the art design, this game is something else. Firstly, it is incredible how detailed New York looks. Seeing comparison shots between the first game and the second, the textures and the amount of intricate modeling that went into the buildings in Spidey 2 is unreal. Seeing people walk around engaging in lifelike activities or conversations, seeing tons of artwork on the sides of buildings, even people inside them, is incredible. The character designs in this game are mostly good, although I have my problems here and there. Spidey and Miles are looking fresh and they got tons of suits to wear. Kraven was looking jacked. I was worried about what that Asian cop lady was going to be doing, but her purple ninja gimmick was a pleasant surprise. Then there's Venom, and he was looking like fucking Venom. That was probably the best in-game Venom since Ultimate Spider-Man, possibly the best ever. Then we're getting Carnage in the DLC, possibly. Oh, I'm marking out, brother. Oh, I need to move on. As I alluded to, though, there are a couple problems I had with character designs. Firstly, and this one is just a weird observation, ultimately, and that's that they still insist on making Peter Parker look like Tom Holland. Like, the other character model was fine, and I doubt the change was going to draw a significant amount of dimes because of it. Also, they made MJ look frumpier for some reason. It affects nothing. Like, absolutely nothing. But I don't understand why game devs actively make pretty girls in games uglier in the sequels. Like, there's gotta be some sort of projection going on there. Anyways, the other problem I had was that they gave Miles a new Spidey costume at the end, and it's the gaudiest fucking thing in the world. Like, there's no top on the mask, so his stupid hair is hanging out and exposing his identity to people who'd recognize Miles. It also has a fucking hood. The hood, I think, is the biggest offense because it's so fucking obtrusive. Get rid of those things and I'm sure the new suit would look fine. The score is once again really good. This game series' Spider-Man theme is really big and epic, and the variations they create in the score allow for the action to feel grandiose in scale. It also varies depending on who you're playing as. While Peter gets the normal orchestral stuff while running around, Miles gets the trap remixes. One of my favorite pieces was the final boss theme for Venom. It had this subdued quality to it, with light strings over top the lower tones and drums, that really made you feel the weight of that situation. But my favorite piece was not even in the game proper per se. It was when you were in the PS5 menu and you hover over the icon for the game. You get this trap remix of the main theme of the game. And let me tell you, this shit goes fucking hard. Especially when it crescendos to those higher notes. Writing-wise, Spider-Man 2 is about on par with its predecessor where it counts. It does the typical Spider-Man things where it handles themes of responsibility and whatnot. What I respect about this game, though, is that it's a better Spider-Man 3 than Spider-Man 3 was. And I defend Spider-Man 3 till the day I die. It threw in tons of villains, but it paced the story in a way so that all these characters fit in naturally. Harry Osborn as Venom made perfect sense, and why Raimi didn't write Spidey 3 that way, despite it being a film I defend to this day like I said, is beyond me. Anyways, I feel the story served as a passing of the torch to Miles. In doing the symbiote arc with Peter and having him lose his best friend to Venom, we have Peter realize that the time has come for retirement. He gives Miles his blessing to go be Spider-Man, while he simply lives a normal life. Over 3 games, Miles faces his own trials and earns the right to be called Spider-Man. That's how you do it with these characters, bud. My only issue with the writing is the fucking Reddit tier leftist pandering it does throughout the game. The dialogue in the game could get super cringe on its own, don't get me wrong. But there were moments that the story would halt so we could receive a lecture on whatever race-based talking point there was. The introduction to the Emily May Foundation featured Harry Osborn prattling on about diverse boards of directors. A side quest involving a stolen fursuit turned into a fucking university lecture about BIPOC artists, even though those kids stealing it wouldn't care about that at all. So like, don't get me wrong. You can talk about racial issues and all the stuff leftists like to proselytize about in any piece of media you want. It kinda makes sense when one of the Spider-Men is a black Puerto Rican kid. In some ways, the script even handled it in a fun way. I liked the mission where you were retrieving stolen instruments that were yoinked by a record producer's kid from a museum. That was fun, and there was a great little museum environment where you learned about the history of all these artists. See, you have to write about these ideas in subtle, interesting ways that serve the narrative, allowing the viewer to quietly reflect on them. Shoving them in our face does no one any favors. It's like they knew they were gonna make millions either way, so they didn't have to fucking try. Anyways, back to what I like about the game. The cast, once again, is fantastic. Yuri Lowenthal is probably among the best to ever portray Spidey, as his performance in this game rivals even the likes of Tugboat. Najee Jeter is really good as Miles Morales, and he handles his emotional bits in the game excellently. If we're being really honest, I like him better than Shameik Moore. In terms of villains, we have Jim Peary voicing Kraven the Hunter, and he was clearly having tons of fun with this material. Also, I forgot to mention, Kraven is a well-written villain in this game, and this actor shows that dynamic nature really well. But in the role of Venom, we have the fucking Candyman himself, the great Tony Todd. However much of the voice was done in post, I don't care. Tony Todd nailed this role. His voice was similar to the one from the 90s cartoon, as it was intimidating and monstrous, but he could also be a bit playful in a scary way. It's just fantastic stuff. Anyways, Spider-Man 2 is a good game. In many ways that count, Spider-Man 2 improves upon many of the things that made the first game such a hit. The graphics are much improved and the gameplay is more engaging, at least when I'm not having to suffer through the MJ levels. While it has issues in terms of presentation and writing, the strengths of the script make for an engaging little cape shit story. I look forward to more Spidey action from this game in the future in the form of higher difficulties and DLC. I may have 100%ed this game, but I'd gladly do it again. Yeah, and I'm feeling 7.5 out of 10 on this one. It's good. It's good stuff. Catch you later, guys.